What's up, guys? Thanks for clicking on the video. What I got for you today is my top 2 favorite hamstring exercises. Now, hamstrings are often a very underdeveloped and underutilized movement in a lot of people's strength programs, mainly because they're not a show muscle and something that you see physically when you look at yourself in the mirror. Not only are they super important for reducing the risk of injury, but in addition to this, they also help with performance. Having stronger hamstrings and just an overall stronger posterior chain will give you a much better advantage on the playing field. Without further ado, let's jump into my top 2 current favorite hamstring exercises. Alright, so number 1 here is going to be the Nordic hamstring curl. Now, this exercise is kind of hard to get set up in, but I'll give a quick demonstration of how I set myself up for this. You'll often find people in the strength and conditioning setting just holding your feet or your ankles from behind, but basically you need something where it's holding your ankles and you're just going to slowly lean your chest forward without bending at your hips. So you're trying to keep your hips and your chest together. You're trying to move in one straight line basically, and it's very hard to do, but you're going to lean forward very slightly. The way that I do it is by doing an eccentric and a concentric. So I come down just a little bit, and then once I reach the tipping point, I use my hamstrings to come back up. Another way you might have seen done is also by slowly lowering yourself down completely, just doing a concentric, and then assisting yourself back up by pushing. But yeah, this one really fires the hamstrings, and it's great because there's such a high eccentric loading. It's very commonly used in strength and conditioning because that eccentric load helps with risk reduction in hamstring tears, hamstring injuries. Here's another view of this, kind of gives you another look at my setup. Again, somebody could just be holding your ankles from behind, but since I do this alone in my apartment, this gives me the best setup. Basically, I have 2 weights, and there's myself going all the way down. So that was the long eccentric. That's one way you can do it. But yeah, so I have weights holding down my ankles, and it's really important to do that because obviously you'll go forward. So have more weight on the bar than you weigh. And as you can see here, here's a kind of a variation and a progression. If you can't go down as far, your hamstrings aren't strong enough, just put a little bench in front of you like so. So here's the little setup here. I weigh 170 pounds, so I put 225 on the bar to ensure that any upward force wouldn't be greater than that 170 pounds. And then I put 2 25-pound plates. You can use 10s just in front of it so it won't roll away. I have a rubber mat there for my knees, and then that extra pad that I put on my ankles here. Another side note, important technique, make sure when you're doing this to have your toes curled under like this. This is going to put your foot in a dorsiflex position. This is important because if you have it in a plantar flex position or toes pointed, one of the things that the gastrocnemius does is actually plantar flex in addition to flex your knee. So in this movement itself, we're actually flexing our knee on top of doing plantar flexion or pointing your toes. So if you do both of these at the same time, I usually get calf strains or cramps when I do this. So basically make sure your toes aren't pointed. So if you do have a buddy that can hold your ankles down, this is by far the best version because it is a lot less work to set up. However, if you do work out by yourself and can set up a barbell like I showed, by all means, humor yourself with that exercise. This movement is similar to the glute ham raise, except that the line of force is moving more through the thigh and the hip. Therefore, you're doing a little bit less work at the knee flexors. So this is more of a knee flexor movement rather than a hip extension type movement. The next exercise we're going to look at is the gliding hamstring curl. Now for this one, all you need is a towel or some type of thing on the ground. You can even just use a sock just your socks or an extra sock, but basically you're going to extend your hips or squeeze your butt, and then you're going to slowly bring that sock or thing out in front of you until your legs are straight. Then you're going to bring it back in. A common technique error I'm doing right now is I'm not extending my hips fully. Not doing that will give you the least amount of activation in your hamstrings, because your hamstrings also extend your hips in addition to flex your knee. So by doing both of those at the same time, you're getting the most benefit for your hamstrings here. This one's really hard, and if you do have troubles, I'm showing some variation. The first one being a very slow eccentric. So I'm extending my hips and then slowly letting my legs go forward. But once I get to the end, I just bring my hips to the ground and then reset the exercise at the top. This takes the concentric portion of the movement out, making it a lot easier for you to do. If you are a complete fire breather and need a harder version, simply try doing this with one leg. I will say this was extremely hard for me to do, and I could barely do one repetition without my hamstrings starting to cramp. Another thing that you can also do to make it more difficult is doing it with both legs, but also adding in a little bit of weight. I like this progression. It's not nearly as hard as a single leg, but offers you a way to progress week to week by adding a certain amount of weight and maybe a few more reps. So a couple variations of doing this is doing it on a rowing machine. I really like a rowing machine because it's nice and smooth and there's no quick jerky reactions. Another one is doing it on a Bocce ball. This will offer a lot of instability and make it much more difficult. Go ahead and give those two exercises a shot next time you're working out at the gym or maybe your home gym. They are incredibly hard, so don't feel like you need to do them as prescribed or even the harder difficulty. Just give them a shot, and of course, go to the variation that you need to give you enough stimulus that you have a good workout. So once again, thanks for watching the video. Thanks for clicking on it, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.